News, Farron and Brian. We're joined with veteran journalist, member of the American Free Press, Jim Tucker. So, Mr. Tucker, I wanted to ask you while we had you, what came out of the Bilderberg as far as a short recession or a long recession or depression, what they had in mind as far as how long they were going to intentionally tank the world economy?
There's some debate over that, but the weight of the Bilderberg opinion now is behind a relatively short, not a 10-year recession. Their opinion is they can make people miserable enough within 2 years that they'll accept the World Treasury Department as a form of relief. And if they let it go for 10 years, they lose profits themselves because many of them who worry about the climate today inherited their millions and millions from smokestack industries their parents owned and ancestors owned. So their tilt is toward more like a 2-year meltdown rather than 10-year meltdown as some had contemplated. So I suppose that's good news in a way.
Mr. Tucker, we saw this report about a secret meeting here in New York of the rich, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, I believe Ted Turner. This was highly publicized. What is your interpretation of this? Was this just some kind of diversion, or what do you think that was?
No, who is that old George Soros was there, and he can't attend now because he's got too many criminal investigations going on. They're a little bit prissy about that. They do want to keep him informed. They want his opinion. So this is sort of a Bilderberg committee meeting.
Wow, that's interesting. Oprah Winfrey was there. This got very little mainstream press, and another secret meeting being held in conjunction. What is your opinion, having watched Bilderberg for all these years, with the dollar and the currency? Do you see the end of the dollar? Do you think they're going to move us to some kind of cashless society, or are we going to go to one world paper currency? What's your opinion on that?
Well, they're a long-time goal, and fortunately they've been set back severely on that, was to expand NAFTA throughout the Western Hemisphere so we'd have an American Union similar to the European Union. The good news is, in the early 90s, they were confident that this would be accomplished by the year 2000, 9 years ago, and they still are further away from it than they were before, which is good news, but we cannot let up on protecting our sovereignty, even though Bilderberg has been gutted a bit, and they're kind of grouchy about it. They denounce these awful nationalists. That's you and me, the patriotic Americans. And they also denounce the terrible nationalists in Europe, like the Irish, who voted against empowering the European Union even more. Although it has so much power now, the European Parliament can impose laws on member states. The European court can grab a citizen of a member state and throw them in jail. Their court is superior to the national courts. In fact, if we ever got trapped into an American Union, there would be an American Union court superior to our United States Supreme Court. There would be an American Union legislature that could pass laws and impose them on the member states. And among those laws would be the hate crimes legislation that the idiots in the Congress just passed, and already part of the plans, already part of the European code, and it also means this: among the protected minority groups, so forth, includes sexual orientation. Now, if a pedophile goes after your 5-year-old daughter, you can object to that, say, please don't abuse my 5-year-old daughter, pedophile, but do not hurt his feelings, because that would be a hate crime. Be nice to that pedophile. How silly could it get?
Mr. Tucker, Bilderberg has always been a blatant violation of the Logan Act. I believe Bill Clinton was fined. If you could just go briefly into the Logan Act, its implications, and just how many thousands of times it's been broken here with Bilderberg.
Yes, the Logan Act makes it quite clear that American officials, federal officials, cannot meet with private citizens behind closed doors and secretly plan public policy. Surely the war cabinet can meet among itself in private, it's necessary sometimes, but they cannot meet with private citizens behind closed doors secretly to plan public policy. And a lot of these cute little liberals say, well, it was passed in 1787. Well, true. It's never been repealed, and so it's still effectively the law of the land. And even though that's not necessary for its validity, Congress has revisited the Logan Act and strengthened it through amendments several times over the last 200 years. So it's not something Congress passed and forgot. It's still the law of the land. It's still a criminal act for the Secretary of Treasury, State, and Defense, and high officials of the White House, and their fellow travelers from the federal government to even attend this meeting. They committed a federal crime. They're criminals.
Mr. Tucker, we have just witnessed the Federal Reserve looting the American people. Bloomberg has reported as much as $12 trillion missing from the Treasury, and no accountability. They refuse to even tell what banks have the money and how much. It's obviously apparent that the Federal Reserve is above accountability to the federal government. Why do you suppose that, one, the American people stand back and allow this and don't cry foul, and two, that our elected officials, our local congressmen and senators, we've got some good people that's elected, seem to be helpless to do anything about this?
Well, the Federal Reserve, as you know, was created about 1913 by the same type of people. They did not, at that time, call themselves Bilderberg, but they created the Federal Reserve and the federal income tax about the same time. And a lot of Americans think, because it's called the Federal Reserve, that it's a private organization, that it's a part of the federal government. It is not. It's a private organization. It should be, first of all, it should be eliminated, as Congressman Ron Paul of Texas calls for, and also it should be audited, as he also calls for. His bill has about 170 co-sponsors now. There'll be a tough fight to get it passed because of the cowardice of our politicians and the overwhelming ignorance of American people. You realize that only barely half of adult Americans read one newspaper a day, not 4 or 5, just one newspaper a day. Now, in 1950s, for example, the average family read several newspapers. Every town had a large number of daily newspapers. And the relative comprehension can be demonstrated by the old Washington Times Herald in the old 8-column format days. Had an inquiring photographer on page 1 every day. At that time, we had no idea that the inquiring photographer girl, as she was called, was a future First Lady. Her name was Jacqueline Beauvair. She'd ask a question typical of the day, a topical for the day, and her audience would typically be a lawyer, a businessman, a sheet metal worker, a plumber, and a cab driver, diverse like that. But each one of their responses showed, whatever their opinions, that they were speaking from an informed position. And today, I've known physicians, lawyers, other men of letters, who've never read a newspaper or a book for fun in their lives. Yes, I've had to read my textbooks because I wanted to practice medicine, or I wanted to practice law, or go to this field or that field, but never read Huckleberry Finn as a child, never read Little Women and had a girly sniffles when Beth died, just never read a book for fun, and do not read newspapers. Now, that's pretty ignorant, because if you say that you get you're well-informed because you watch the newscast each day, each evening on the Idiot Box, no, you're an ignorant ass, because the half-hour newscast will be half commercials, more than half commercials, and a whole lot of it will be how to cook a good dinner, how to raise your baby, giggling on the sidewalk. Oh, by the way, 5 kids were killed in a rock today, and here's how to make a cake. I mean, it's just nonsense.
Well, I agree with you on that, sir. And I just wanted to tell you, one, it was an honor to be with you last year at Chantilly, Virginia. You are a true patriot. I want to thank you for all of the work you've done exposing these secret societies for my family and for the people of the United States. And it was a pleasure having you on the Real News today, sir.
It was my pleasure, too.
We'll have you back soon. And you have a very good day, sir.
Thank you.